Hello everybody, Aaron here with another pen video. Thank you guys for tuning in again. And today we're going to take a look at this pen. The pen that we have here is the Moonman N3 fountain pen. So this is another really interesting fountain pen from Moonman. And I've been really impressed with really all the Moonman pens that I've been receiving and reviewing for you guys. And I would really put Moonman just that notch below Pen BBS right now as far as just a really quality product that they are producing. They have really interesting, nice materials. Their nibs are pretty consistent as far as writing. Not as nice as Pen BBS overall, I think just on consistency with writing, but they're still a nice brand. And this pen has a lot of good things going for it. So we'll cover the parts of the pen like normal. I'll tell you guys a little bit what I like, what I don't like about the pen. Obviously, we're going to do some sizing comparisons. With those sizing comparisons, I'm going to focus on other Moonman fountain pens. So that way you can kind of see the difference of this pen versus some other models. And then we'll do a writing sample at the end, of course. Real quick, this is the pen coffin it came in. Here is the actual tag that you see here. Obviously, we see our model number up there. We've got a UPC barcode. So this is the Moonman model N3-01F. It is a fine nib. Again, just your standard Moonman pen coffin like you normally have been seeing with other models such as the M100. Now, one thing a little bit different, this is the first pen that I've had like this. We actually have a tag similar to what you see on some of your higher end pens like Pilot and I think Sailor and some other Japanese pens. But we've got a little tag that was of course attached here, which I think is kind of cool. I haven't translated any of this information, but of course, as you can tell, it's for a Moonman pen. And then you've got that same model designation on the back. But one thing I did notice is that the UPC is different, as well as the fact that this box says 01F and this one says 02F. Again, I haven't translated anything or tried to scan the barcode to see what it, kind of tells me through maybe like a Google search. But just thought it was something to know. Again, not really that important, but I think it kind of interesting at the same time. So looking at the pen itself. So first things first about this pen, the material really, I think, catches your eye. I chose this blue material. I love the color blue. If you guys haven't noticed, a lot of my pens are blue. And as you can tell, this acrylic has some really nice chatoyancy to it, as well as some transparent properties. And on the auction that I purchased this pen, it did have it labeled as a celluloid fountain pen. However, I would lean towards more acrylic base. I know when I watched Chris Rep 52's pen, he referred to it as an acrylic fountain pen, which I would tend to agree with him. When you really put it against other Moonman pens that are labeled as acrylic, Pen BBS, things of that nature, it's very similar to that. Starting off at the top of the pen, we've got a flat top on the cap here with a kind of metal jewel with Moonman's logo on there. Now working our way down the cap, I'm going to do a little bit of a twirl here for you so you can see kind of those lines and veins in the material. I think it's very gorgeous. We've got our clip here, very standard clip, nothing super special or fancy. A little bit stiff, but it works well. You see we've got our notch that kind of slides into a pocket pretty easily. I did try and put it in my jean pocket, a little bit more difficult, but a shirt pocket, it works perfectly fine. I haven't had any issues. Now you'll notice that we kind of have a little bit of a metal band here separating the cap to the barrel. Other than that, it's mostly streamlined. So of course you would expect to have a little bit of a step down on this pen, which we'll see kind of how that transition works here in a moment. Making our way down the barrel, you notice we've got this nice light color here, kind of a creamish color, which I think really accents the blue nicely, as well as some kind of blackish colors here or dark colors here. Give you a nice little twirl of that barrel. As you go down the barrel, it starts to taper down to the end. And then again, we just kind of have a flat top here. So different type design than you'll see on like your M100s and stuff, which I think kind of fits into that mold of the in-line. When I'm talking about in-line, I'm talking about N1, N2, N3. This is the third edition that they've seen, and all of them have been flat tops. And I'll kind of show you guys that here in a moment. Now, as far as taking off the cap here, there's one turn. So not quite 1.5 turns, about 1 1/3 turns to get the cap off. So not too difficult there. Now you'll see that we do have a slight step down, and we have metal threads here. Now the step down to me is not very obtrusive. It's not sharp at all. This metal piece here definitely works well. So if you're gonna hold the pin up higher, it's pretty comfortable. And that actually is typically about where I hold this pin, and I don't have any issues. The threads are definitely machined well. So again, no issues there. This section is pretty much the same size all the way through. Now, as you can tell, this section is much smaller. It's not hourglass shape, so I think some people may find the section more closer to, say, a ballpoint pen, just because it's more elongated and somewhat skinnier. That'd be, one thing that might kind of annoy some people. Now, it is the same material, which I do love. I love the fact that it has this portion right here. It just really catches your eye when you're turning the pin. So I don't really have issues with this section because, again, I do hold it up higher, but just something I would note. Now, as far as the nib goes, this is essentially basically the same nib that you get in your S1 model. It's just your standard Moonman fine nib. So nothing super special. It writes well though. It's consistent, has a nice flow. And then we see our feed on the back, which has that number on it, which I know is like a designation for when they mold the feed or do that injection molding and whatnot. It has those numbers on it that way they can decipher which ones might be defective, so to speak. And if I didn't explain that properly, hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. So as far as taking off the barrel, of course, we have a metal piece here. And I'll talk about that here in a moment. We've got just your regular cartridge converter setup. This converter works perfectly fine. Of course, it's just your standard converter that you see on most fountain pens. Now, this metal piece here, one thing I have noticed, and can't really necessarily show you very well, I'm going to take this converter out, but this piece here actually can kind of slide in and out. And I don't know if it's just my pen, but it's basically just, to me, seems to be friction fit inside of here. Now, of course, this nib unit here, I'm going to get ink on my hands, but it does unscrew like you have with pretty much all of your Moonman pins. So it's one unit. Then, of course, you can take the nib and feed out of that unit, and you could obviously change out the nib if you didn't like this nib that the pen came with. So the only issue, and I see, is that this portion is friction fit in here. So a little bit different. I don't know if that's going to create quality issues or durability issues long term, but I did want to mention it. Kind of similar to what we've seen on some of the LIY fountain pens. I don't think necessarily the exact same setup, but somewhat similar. So something, again, I wanted to mention. Of course, metal piece here, so there's that. So in essence, that is the fountain pen. So now we are going to do some sizing comparisons with some other Moonman fountain pens, and then I'll tell you guys kind of what I like about the pen and what I don't like about the pen. See you guys in just a second. All right, guys, so I've got a few Moonman models up here, and I'll start from the top and work my way down. So up here we have the Moonman M2. I put that one in here because obviously I know that's a very popular fountain pen, so a lot of you may own that. Then we have the Moonman M100, another cigar-shaped pen, so of course you're seeing a theme here. And then right here we actually have the Moonman N2, and so this one is kind of considered a pocket pen, obviously based off its stature, but one main characteristic that you'll notice, the pen obviously has flat tops on both the cap and the barrel, as well as so does the Moonman N3. I do not own the N1. The N1 is basically like a pocket fountain pen as well, but from the pictures I've seen of it, and I'll post one up on the screen, it is flat tops as well. So I think the N line, that's kind of a theme that I'm noticing. is a lot of your M series here, you're going to see more of these cigar shaped pins. And then in our inline, we're seeing more flat top pins. So it's something a little bit different, which I think is a nice design characteristic. The other thing you'll notice, these two pins, a little bit girthier, especially in the middle section of the pin. And then of course they taper down at the end, whereas these two here kind of have the same overall design. You know, this one to me is a little bit fatter in the middle, but at the end they do taper down at the end on the barrel, and then of course flat tops as well. Now let's see all four of these pins posted so we can also see the sections and the nibs as well. All right, so here we see all four pins posted. Now, one common theme with all four of these pins is you're basically going to see a number 5 size nib with these pins. So, and another thing that you'll notice, with these two here specifically, meaning the N2 and the N3, you're going to notice that we have metal threads on the barrel, for instance, or section, so to speak. Whereas here we're going to have our threads here are going to be that same plastic type material, and then here the acrylic as well, or machine material. All four of these pins do post. I will say, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, the N3 fountain pin, I think I like the way it posts the most. It is a little bit more elongated, it doesn't post very deeply, but it's nicely balanced. I don't typically post a lot of my pins, but this is one I don't mind because it is a much lighter fountain pin. And I do like the fact, or like the way that it posts. I apologize, I'm actually kind of cleaning off that nib a little bit. I was playing with it off camera and have ink all over it. So I do like that. Now looking at the sections, out of these 4 pins, my 2 favorite sections, honestly, are going to be the M100 and the M2 here. Not that I don't necessarily mind the N3 section, it's just, again, it is skinnier, so it's not my favorite section out of these 4 pins. I think they all are gorgeous in their own right. You have a beautiful clear fountain pen up here where you can see that ink sloshing around. Beautiful acrylic on your M100. And I think another nice pretty acrylic on your N2. And of course, I've already talked about the N3 in this video. And then lastly, just looking at the nibs, these two basically have the same exact nib. And then we've got the Bach titanium nib that I have in this pin, which I've already done a review on. And then we've got the M2 nib here, which is an actual extra fine. These two here are both fine nibs as well. Now you may ask yourself, what are some other Moonman fountain pins to compare this to? So I've got some other Moonman pins that I've thrown into this. Now you may notice one of them looks a little bit different, at least I haven't done a review on, and I'll briefly discuss that one. So working our way from the bottom, working to the top now, we have the Moonman N3, the Moonman Wankai, the quintessential pocket fountain pen. We have a Moonman S1 here that you heard me speak about a few moments ago. And then this guy here is one of my new acquisitions. This is the Moonman M200. I just got it a few days ago. Have not even inked it up yet, but I did want to throw it in here just to give another look at it. This will probably be my next pin review, just FYI for everybody. So again, just giving you guys a chance to look at these 4 pins, get some different sizing comparisons, and can you really kind of see some of the variety that Moonman is offering now in some of their lines. The S1 is a cigar-shaped pen, but is different than the M100 and the M2 as far as kind of the ends are a little bit more pointed. And then our M200, they've kind of changed it up a little bit more, even though it's still a cigar-shaped pen. Doesn't come to as much of a point, more just of a rounded shape there. Now let's look at the pins posted. All right, so now we see all 4 pins posted. First things first, of course, our Wankai is going to be the smallest out of the pins because it is a pocket fountain pen. Now, out of these 4 pins, I would definitely say the S1. I do like the section and the way it works on that. I haven't really started writing with the M200 yet, so I can't really, obviously, speak to that one. As far as nibs go, these bottom three are very similar as far as the nib go. Now our M200 does have that Schmidt fine nib, so it's going to be very much so like the M100, so it's going to be a little bit different. Now we do notice on our M200, we've got the section is a little bit different where it's fatter up here then kind of tapers down. So haven't written with that one yet, so I can't speak to overall writing experience. But did want to kind of show the nibs again up close. And again, just kind of show you a little bit more variety. This one here, the S1, I know we're not reviewing this pen, but great bang for your buck. It's really one of the cheaper acrylic pens out of Moonman. Roughly, it's going to be less than 20 bucks. Good pen to use. So I do like that one quite a bit. All right, so up next, I'm going to tell you guys what I like about the pen, what I don't like, and then again, we're going to do a writing sample. All right, guys, so been wanting to do this part. Normally I do this at the very end, what I really like about a pen, what I don't, but I figured I'd do this part before I do the writing sample. So what do I like about the pen? I love the material. The material is gorgeous. I haven't really had no complaints about any Moonman pen that I've purchased as far as material goes. I think the nib's consistent. It is a fine nib, which are not always my favorite, but it's similar to like the S1 nib, and you'll see that in the writing sample. The nib does perform well, the feed's fine. So what are some things that I don't care for about the pen? So a couple things. First things first, that metal piece that I showed you guys on the barrel, again, I don't know if it's supposed to be kind of loose like that. I did not like the fact that I could just easily move it around. So it's just something to be wary of. That might be a quality control issue. If it's supposed to be like that, that's fine. But again, I was able to move it around even with the nib intact here, so that I haven't really fiddled with it a ton. So I don't know, again, what's that about. Now, another thing that I'm not too terribly thrilled about is this pen. So you're going to notice, let me get a flashlight. I should have been more prepared and I apologize. So I'm going to get my bore light here. And first things first, you can kind of see that material. So it's very pretty, but then we see our threads there. So our threads are machined into this acrylic. So I'm having some similar, not quite as bad as the M100. The M100, one of its biggest drawbacks in my opinion is that cross-threading issue, which I know for some of you really kind of drives you crazy. I had several people comment in some of my videos. This pen has some cross-threading opportunities. I do get the occasional grinding with the threads on this pen that does kind of bother me. It makes me wonder if, if I'm not being very aware, or I'm recapping the pen very quickly, say I'm on a rush, take a couple notes and I got to move either whatever it is to another subject at work, whatever it may be. Am I going to damage the threads on the cap and then make it to where the pen is somewhat inoperable because of that? So just something I wanted to mention that does bother me a little bit. And then lastly, the section is not necessarily my favorite. So it's just a lot skinnier. I do happen to hold it up here. This is a pen, if you like to post pens, makes it longer, and I don't mind it posted. I actually like the balance of the pen. It does feel nice. Now, all that being said, it's still a nice pen. And I just had that cross-threading just now. Like when I went to do it, because I wasn't paying attention because I was talking, and I got some of that cross-threading. So all that being said, it's still a nice pen for around $22 to $25. I think it's a cool pen to purchase. It's a gorgeous material. I think you'll enjoy the pen. I just wanted to share some additional concerns that I have about the pen, that, to make sure that you guys are aware of it in case you're thinking about purchasing this pen. So up next, guys, I'm going to post some weights and measurements on the screen, and then we will knock out a writing sample. See you in a moment. All right, everybody, we are back for the writing sample. So I'm going to uncap this pen. I apologize if you hear my son in the background. He is he's playing right now. All right, so first things first, we have the Moonman N3. Now this is, again, is the blue color, and this is a fine nib. I can't remember for sure what ink I have in this pen, but I'm about 90% certain it's a Iroshizuku Konpeki. In fact, it is that. I know for a fact it is. I just had to think for a moment. Now, again, this is a fine nib. It's not my most favorite nib. I like it a little bit broader, but that's why you can always replace the nib. Now, if you like fine nibs, this is a nice pin to use. Let's do a quick writing sample. Now, as far as wetness, kind of look at the wetness scale here. Pretty dry rider. It's not a very wet rider, and it's somewhat similar to S1. Although I think my S1 to me is a wetter rider, but I have noticed it a little bit more with these specific nibs. They're not a little bit drier, and my Konpeki ink is, to me, I think it is a decently wet ink. At least I've noticed that in most other pens I've used it in. So still consistent, but again, not a very wet rider. So if you like a really nice juicy nib, it's probably not going to be that nib for you. Now, does it do reverse writing, you may ask? Yeah. I mean, it's like an ultra extra fine. Not, because I think it is a little bit drier. It's not extremely clear, and I did have to put some pressure, especially on some of these downstrokes there. So not a great reverse writer. You're not going to really get, you know, necessarily any real line variation with this nib, so don't be expecting that. You know, it's somewhat smooth. There's not a tremendous amount of feedback with this nib, but again, a little bit drier rider. Do a little bit of fast writing for you. That might have been me. Let's do it again. No, there's still some skipping. I have had this pen uncapped for an excessive amount of time. I have done absolutely no work on this nib, so there's that as well. But you do see, for fast writing, you know, a few issues here and there. So again, nib not super stellar, but there you have it. So not necessarily my exact favorite Moonman pen, but I do like this. Neither the N2 or the N3 have completely blown me away as far as the pens go. I do like the material on this one a lot better though, and it does have other colors. So we have 4 colors total that I've noticed in most of the auctions I've looked at. Again, the pen's gonna range you $20 to $25. I've seen it roughly around $23. I paid in the higher end because I think I got this like right when I saw an auction available, so I paid about 25 bucks, which normally that's what I notice when they first get launched to like eBay or Etsy. They always seem to be a little bit more expensive, and then the price goes down. So shop around. I think if you can get this pen in the $20 to $23 range, I think it's a great steal, a great buy. I know Chris Rapp really enjoyed this pen and really loved it. I haven't had like an amazing experience with it. I do prefer my M100s more, of course. But again, it's all relative. It's what you like, and it is a gorgeous material. I'm not going to question that at all. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Obviously, more than likely, our next review is going to be this guy right here. Super, super excited for this one. It's very similar to the M100, but also very so much not in a lot of ways. So I'm excited to review this one. Can't wait. Until next time, guys, take care. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.